It's a sad day for a particular indie project called Jurassic Park Operations. This was actually on my list of games to cover, but before I could get around to it, Universal stepped in and shut it down. Well, mostly. There are some really interesting things going on with this one regarding copyright and fan games and thoughts in the developers' heads, and there's some thoughts I really got to express, so let's get into this one. Now, even though a cease and desist has been ordered by Universal, production is still underway for Operations. But before we dive into the details, because there's a lot, let's quickly understand what this game is. It's a first-person game based on the events of the iconic 1993 film Jurassic Park. Development began in 2020 and is primarily driven by Chronoticon and 2 others. Now, here's the twist. In order to play this game, you're going to need a PlayStation 4 or 5, and their proprietary application, Dreams. Never heard of Dreams? Well, neither did I, until studying this situation. But it's essentially a creation engine that allows people to create and share work such as games, animations, models, and more, all made from scratch, and is what Operations is being developed in. It has a lot of limitations and functions similar to Halo's Forge, being a scene-based editor with fixed asset budgets, so open worlds are off the table. Some might wonder why the developer would take on such a big concept using Dreams, so I'll let them speak for themselves here.
I knew nothing about 3D animation, modeling, or game design before Dreams. All I knew is that I wanted to learn it one day, and that Dreams seemed to be the most accessible. A few years later, and I'm able to make things like this.
There's no way to export the game from Dreams, so it's not planned for PC or other consoles. It is intended for an early 2023 demo release and will be completely free, but as mentioned, there's really a $20 cover charge because you will still need to buy Dreams in the first place. What you'll be doing in this game is alluded to in the title, Operations. The player will take on what the devs call what-if scenarios, like hunting raptors, piloting the river adventure raft, and driving through the T-Rex paddock to reboot motion sensors, which leads the player up to that iconic breakout scene in the film. You can also explore sections of the island in free roam and check out dinosaurs up close. Their plans were to also start working on a single-player story mode after releasing the demo. It would include actual characters from the film, such as Robert Muldoon being one example, and feature a brand new protagonist. VR is even supported for the game, but only for PlayStation 5 owners. Multiplayer is planned as well, riding on a potential update to Dreams in 2023.
If that ends up being true, we will definitely be taking advantage of that and implementing it into our game.
Now, the devs actually gave a statement to their concerned fans about their plans if the worst were to happen and Universal stepped in with a cease and desist. They said they would either A, take all their assets and locations and put out animations and short films with them, or B, remove all mentions of Jurassic Park from the game. After listening to Chronoticon speak, in hindsight, it's fairly apparent that he was banking on this not happening, solely based on the fact that they were not making money directly from the game. But if you think that's how simple it is for a get-out-of-jail-free card when it comes to intellectual property, you would be mistaken. So fast forward 3 months from that statement, and Chronoticon drops this video about Universal stepping in and causing the worst-case scenario. Though I'm sure we can all agree getting sued would be the real worst case scenario here. He didn't unveil the exact words exchanged in the email he received from Universal's head of brands and content, but did give us a list of comments and concerns from Universal. This was extremely insightful into how large companies handle these situations, so here are their 5 major points. 1. They are aware of the devs' intention to release the game for free in Dreams. 2. They are aware of the devs' desire to be meticulously accurate to the films. 3. Because things are looking so good and accurate, this actually led to Universal's concern that people would mistake their game for an officially licensed one. The dev's defense to this point in particular in the video is that he says he never claimed it to be official and has stated in each video title on YouTube that it's a fan game. He did offer Universal to, get this, have a watermark on the game, somehow indicating that what you are playing is not an official product of Universal. I'm just imagining the whole time you're playing the game that there's this watermark staring at you from your HUD or something, reminding you that you're playing something that was originally made without Universal's consent. It's a strange approach and not something I think I've ever seen in a game before, so let me know if you have. And I'm not talking about mobile games. Needless to say, they didn't bite. But let's continue with their final 2 points. 4. Potentially damaging the vision of their filmmakers, and 5, wanting to protect how their fans experience the franchise. Chronoticon says he would completely agree with these points if he was claiming their game was official.
Well, I see their point. I've never claimed it to be an official game.
And it's at this point where I can't believe how he doesn't see why these are still valid concerns regardless. But we'll put a pin in that thought and just keep moving for now. When I went looking through their Discord, I did find some screenshots that Chronoticon did share of the emails from Universal's direct words to them. These back up the points that he listed, and we can still make out the very bottom line of what's being cut off here. It says, your utilization of explicit intellectual property from the Jurassic Park World franchise, such as the logo, font, and that's where it stops. But it probably goes on to list the many things he's taking directly from the IP and states that they need to remove them or something. They also gave some examples of what would violate points 4 and 5 for them, saying injuring a beloved character, suddenly allowing dinosaurs to speak, or other situations that would change our characters in ways that could be damaging to this vision. And if you ask me, it's all worded very reasonably. Chronoticon feels slightly differently, and he responds to the example they gave about allowing dinosaurs to speak by pointing out a scene in the film where, in fact, one of the dinosaurs speaks to Alan.
And something I found just a little funny was that a key example they made of something that could damage the vision of their filmmakers was allowing dinosaurs to speak, because their filmmakers would never allow that.
Alan is having a nightmare on a plane when a scaly passenger calls his name, and he wakes up to find it was just his friend calling his name. Chronoticon seemingly uses this sequence to make the case that Universal's filmmakers would, in fact, allow the dinosaurs to speak. And I see what he's going for, but I don't think it's the own he thinks it is. That scene was pretty obviously used for comedic effect, and no one thinks the dinosaurs can canonically speak to humans now because of it. It comes across a little childish to even be making such a comparison. What is most surprising to me is that Chronoticon seems to act like he didn't see this cease and desist coming. But this is why I make these videos. So even if the developers aren't keeping an eye out for fairly obvious pitfalls, you, the consumer, are, and you're aware, and you won't just get swept up into the hype train. His reasoning for being surprised is that there have been many fan games made that are still available to this day, yet he didn't bother to list any of them. Source? Trust me, bro. Though I do have to pause here and say he did eventually mention Five Nights at Freddy's and other Sonic fan games at the end of his video, but he again didn't list them specifically. I really wish he did. I would have loved to know. It interested me how these games would have gotten past the ban hammer, and I specifically would have looked into them. I did put it out there in Discord looking for an answer, but my inquiries went ignored. But in the end, this reasoning is still a non sequitur. Pointing out how many alleged projects didn't get shut down doesn't tell you how many did that you just haven't or may never hear about. It's like not being able to see the dislikes on YouTube and saying that that one Rewind video was good because of how many likes it has. Yeah, but there's still more to this story, so let's keep going. At one point in the video, Chronoticon says, more often than not, fan games are harmless, and while I think I agree, there's still a risk for these companies. They don't know the people making these games, and they don't have a hand in it to make sure their concerns from points 3 to 5 don't happen. It's just easier for them to shut it down than to work out the logistics. We can even see this reasoning in their email when they say, because we are not affiliated with your product and have our own video games that leverage our Jurassic World franchise intellectual property, we must ask that you change the name of your game, and please, and that's all we can see. I'm not disagreeing with the dev when he says that fan projects only help to bring more attention to an already beloved franchise. I'd also argue that fan games about your franchise are a key sign of how successful and beloved your franchise actually is, and that die-hard community culture should be embraced. Sadly, that's just not how the world works, or rather, these issues fall into an unfortunate category where it's something the fans want, but the company is still acting completely within their rights to protect their property, even if that's at the cost of something good. But as you can imagine, the community response wasn't too happy about this email. In unfortunate situations like this, denial, tribalism, and delusion can unfortunately kick in. I'm sure there's jokes being thrown in here and there, but I'm just as sure that fans who have supported this game since its inception are feeling some genuine animosity towards Universal, with war cries and just the general determination to simply will the game into existence. Others would prefer to take the activist approach and try going on a Jurassic World franchise canceling crusade, saying, we might have to do a canceling. Okay. Days World thinks this cease and desist letter could be the start of a budding partnership with Universal, And Chronoticon agrees. It's just erring on the side of arrogance, maybe, and delusion, still thinking there's a chance to get licensed, or that some monolithic company needs you or your game. Sinchi saying, tell them they can get a share of the money, really just takes the cake here. We are using your IP, but don't worry, we're open to throwing you a cut from the pile. This isn't a Disney movie, and you're not the princess in it, unfortunately. Universal saw what you're doing, and they gave you their answer, and you're acting like...
So you're telling me there's a chance?
Since we are in the gaming sphere, I'm sure there are a lot of fans that are younger that just have no clue how legal systems work. But this, in my mind, puts responsibility back on the creators. They're the ones taking a risk, potentially unbeknownst to their fans, acting like being shut down is an unlikely outcome.
Again, this is worst case scenario and hopefully won't be something we have to worry about since we're not making any money off of people playing the game.
But what we've uncovered so far isn't the worst of it. I think you'll see that some of the ideas Chronoticon comes up with in response to this and the potential repercussions are the most concerning part. In the update video, Chronoticon concedes we really have no other choice but to remove the IP from the game, as if this was unexpected. You might as well be saying, we really have no other choice but to remove the wrongfully used assets that don't belong to us from our game that isn't licensed. I mean, it's really just that simple. However, the devs are not so easily dissuaded by Universal's demands, even equating them to a pebble in their shoe, a line taken from the film.
And as risky as it could be, I'm not going to let a particular pebble in my shoe stop us from finishing what we started, especially since we're this close to finishing the demo.
We're going to open next year, that is if the lawyers don't kill me first. I don't care for lawyers, do you?
Yes, because Universal is just a tiny inconvenience standing in your way. There's that arrogance creeping in again. They are not going to let this little pebble stop them from finishing the demo, which they are apparently close to completing. They acknowledge there could be further risks involved with this, and they've had some interesting ideas on how they're going to pull this off. Chronoticon comments in the Discord, hopefully we can work something out with Universal, but if not, I guarantee that everyone will still be able to play the demo the original way it was intended. You just might have to take one extra step to access it. What does he mean by this? I think we can find the answer in another comment from 2 days later. To avoid getting in trouble with the demo, we are going to quickly release a new version without the IP right after we release the intended version. This way, all people would have to do is go back one version to access the version with the IP. However, this plan isn't foolproof because Universal could still technically pull it down if they get in contact with Sony or Media Molecule. This is also very risky for me because doing this could get my account banned, but it would be worth it if even only a few people could get to play this game before it gets taken down. Man. Are you out of your mind? Releasing the original version would be in direct opposition to Universal's cease and desist. And if your fans will be able to revert to that version after the patch, what makes you think people from Universal won't find out? And two, what makes you think someone isn't going to be watching how you're releasing this game now? I am not a fan of melodrama in professional spaces, and this has all the heroism of falling on your own sword, except if you placed that sword in Universal's hand and then pull it into yourself. I'm afraid of how short-sighted this new indie developer is behaving by risking their reputation on their first project like this and thinking, it's all worth it, man, for the cause, you know? Fight the power. Doing this in a sneaky way, I guarantee you, is not a good look professionally. And not only will it not help you find favor in Universal's eyes, but it also has a high probability of damaging relationships in the business world. I have been on the receiving end of such behavior myself, and I haven't worked with that individual since. Chronoticon didn't mention any of these ideas in his video, so it appears he can exhibit better judgment at least. But it seems they are in his back pocket for his closer community in Discord, saying, if we end up having to stop making the game, then I'll put together the demo with everything we have so far and release it privately in this Discord. I just hope they don't have any issues with me doing that. So, what about the public release? What's going on there? Well, as stated before, he will be releasing a version without all the problematic IP, but there's a catch. The story mode that was planned for the game is now being cut because they're no longer developing anything past the demo, and they're now calling the demo the full game. On top of these huge losses, they say a lot of other things will have to be cut as well. One of my biggest questions is what is stopping the devs from still developing the rest of the game and just forming your own story? Chronoticon even tells us that Universal is completely fine with and wish him success with continuing the project without using the Jurassic Park IP. Great, you're in the clear to finish your game your way. But if we keep reading, he says, the only problem is that the whole foundation of the game is built upon the IP, that it will be a ton of work to remove it. Yes, I do suppose that's the corner you backed yourself into. Also, the whole reason we made the game was because it was Jurassic Park. Again, that is the path that you chose. You didn't have to literally use as much of the IP as you could. To recount, they're using the name, logos, actual things from the film such as characters, story, the island of Isla Nublar itself, and blending in canon from the books as well. There's already even an official game called Jurassic Park Operation Genesis. Like, could you not be more on the nose? Just call it something different, change the logos, and make sure that the characters and stories are not exactly that of the films. But instead of doing that, they state that once the original and backup demos are completed, they will be moving on to something completely new and original. So perhaps they just want to wash their hands of this whole situation and move on. But there are people who bought Dreams just to play this game. And he does acknowledge this, telling those people not to worry, that they'll get a new demo version.
Don't worry if you bought Dreams specifically for this game, though. We will be releasing a public version without the intellectual property.
But do you really think the demo version, without the nostalgia-inducing properties that you hooked people in with and got them hyped for, or the entire story mode, or a bunch of other features that are now apparently being cut, is a big enough band-aid for that bullet hole? What about multiplayer? I mean, that was supposed to be integrated with an update to Dreams this year. Is that still coming? Will people still be getting a new main protagonist? What about the people supporting you on Patreon all this time, waiting to play a game that now you can't legally give them? Is there a refund to supporters of some kind, or possibly a reimbursement of $20 to the people who bought Dreams? Or do you just keep that money and deliver a fraction of what you'd promised before jumping ship? And right about now is when I start to have a problem with indie developers who do this. Or frankly, any developers, but I'm more interested in keeping the indie world accountable. I think it's become pretty evident that they were truly banking on all of this working without a hitch. And by this, I mean using an IP without a license, putting all your eggs in one basket, having none or lacking backup plans, and not following through with much of a product after you've raked in support from earnest fans for years. I don't think it's intentional, but I think it could possibly qualify as reckless or negligent. And negligence on the creator's part can cost fans money and time that they can't get back. It can also create tribalism and a skewed view of who the bad guy really is in these scenarios, as we've already seen. You can shake your fist at Universal like they're the big bad greedy company squashing a poor little indie dev's dreams in this situation. But I think that's just an emotionally charged way to look at things. I get that this is crushing to everyone involved. This is something I was looking forward to playing and reviewing and checking out myself. But Universal is not the one that crossed any lines in this situation. They're just looking after their brand. You can't love Universal so much for their films, but then also hate them for how they protect them. If someone went out today and started making a game about this franchise that you love so much and started doing things that was damaging to the vision and things that you didn't agree with, I'm sure you would want Universal to step in and protect the brand. However mad the community might be at Universal right now, you really can't blame the fans, as every tribe has a leader. It's the creators who hyped them up and sold them on an idea that, as we've seen, they were never going to get away with. Researching this event has brought up maybe more questions than I originally set out to answer. Where is the line for copyright? When has something gone too far? Surely, if they just made up some fan animation about Jurassic Park instead of a whole game and uploaded that to YouTube, it wouldn't be shut down, right? Or would it? What is safe for indie developers to do so that they don't get into trouble and keep having to throw out months or years of work? Well, I decided I would do a deep dive about all the projects I could find with a specific focus on fan games that were shut down because of copyright, highlighting the exact cause in each case, as well as answering the question, what is copyright, so people can have a better understanding of all of this. If you're like me and you want to know these answers and where Jurassic Park operations and other projects went wrong, as well as what other projects could be next on the copyright chopping block, I will link a video to that here and in the description once it's published. In the meantime, here's a video of mine that YouTube thinks you'll like. I highlight the latest indie games and developers on my channel if you want to have a look around. Thank you to all my members and patrons for your support. I'm Void, and I will see you guys in the next one.